Hello and welcome to another update. In this one, I will be covering the whole front line. I'll be starting out in the northern parts and then I'll be moving down to the Vuhledar area. So starting out here in the north in the direction of Kharkiv, the Russian forces continue their attacks in the direction of Sinkivka, which is this village to the north of Kupiansk area. So the Russian forces, after the capture of Hryonygivka and Liman Pershi, they are now fighting by Mesyukivka and Sinkivka. Further south in the Kreminna front, here the Russian forces attack in the direction of Makivka as well as Nevske, west of Chernopopivka, both to the north and southern areas, west of Kreminna in the direction of Sarishna, south of Dibrova as well as south of Kreminna in the Serebryansky forest area. So the fighting here is based on active defense. So the Russian forces are attempting to gain control over these areas by not attacking, but by defending. So whenever the Ukrainian forces retreat after any of their attempted attacks, then they will advance a little bit to follow their retreat until they get to the next Ukrainian position. Then they set up their own positions, after which the Ukrainians attack again and repeat. As long as they continue defending properly and the Ukrainians take enough losses, then the Russian forces can advance. Then by Bilorivka, fighting continues here, as well as by Berestove, northwest of it, in the direction of Vyemka, and in the direction of Vesele, here to the south of Siversk. So fighting here also continues in this direction for the Russian forces to expand their zone of control here in this southern area and to advance in the direction of Siversk, while here to the northeast they are fighting in the direction of Bilorivka, as this is a stronghold for the Ukrainian forces within the Luhansk region. Then we move on to the Bakhmut front, where the Russian forces continue their attacks north of Selesnyansk by the E40 highway, in Oryhov-Vasilivka and south of the village, in between Oryhov-Vasilivka and Hrihorivka, in the direction of Bohdanivka, but further south in direction by the road, in the direction of Khomove, to the north of Bakhmut, both northwestern and northern parts, as the Russian forces have managed to advance slightly west of the government office, and they have managed to take capture of the Azom metal processing plant here to the north. The rest of the plants have not been taken under control yet, but this northern part of it, which is the most important part, as this is the ones with the most tunnels and so on, the Russian forces have managed to take control of. And then they will be moving southwards to these separate parts of the plant. And these are all like layer areas as well as transport hubs and so on. So these are less difficult to take than the northern mines here to the north. Then we move on to the southern part of the fighting here by the marketplace, as well as in the southern parts, where the Russian forces are trying to close this whole southern part by attacking from these three directions, to the southeast, to the south, and to the southwest. So the Russian forces are here trying to reach this central area, while at the same time pushing the Ukrainian forces out of the pocket. Then we move to the western parts, where the Russian forces are attacking here by the educational facility as they try to gain further control over this area. Then we move to the southwest of the city, where the Russian forces are trying to advance here by the residential areas, as well as reach the highway between Bakhmut and Konstantinivka, and at the same time fighting continues by Ivanivske. While there's also reports of fighting by Predeshina, which is here to the west of the canal. Then we move on to the Avdiivka front, where here the Russian forces are attacking by Keramik and Novokalinove, here to the north of the city. And here the Russian forces are reported to have entered Novokalinove according to Wargonso. So that means that the front line would have moved all the way here. So they have crossed the highway as well as these open field positions. However, until one of my two main sources, Deep State Map or Syriac Maps, confirm this, then it is not true in my eyes. Fighting also continues by Kamyanka, as well as here to the southwest of Avdiivka, by the part north of Opitne and in the western area by Severne, as well as fighting continues here in the direction of Pervomaiske, both to the northern area and the central area, as well as in the direction of Novelske. So the Russian forces are here attacking on the whole front line as they continue to do. However, there's not been any reports of fighting by Berdishi or Stepove, which is interesting because they usually reported on this, and Deep State Map has still not confirmed this western advance of Krasnohorivka. However, Syriac Maps hasn't updated this part of the map, so I will still take it as this is under Russian control and that they're just trying to hold the rail lines for now, and focusing on the advances here to the north of the area. As for the eastern parts and the southern parts, there were reports of Ukrainian counteroffensive that took control over the entrenched areas here to the south of Avdiivka. However, this was never under Russian control, so it is just another Twitter victory for the Ukrainian forces, since they never lost control over it. Then we move on to the Marinka area, where here the Russian forces are attacking the direction of Krasnohorivka, as well as in the central part of Marinka, to the north by the warehouses, and in the northern residential district of Marinka, as well as into the southern direction of Pobieda. The fighting continues on the whole part of the Marinka area. Fighting also continues by Novomikhailivka, where the Russian forces continue their shelling and attacks towards Novomikhailivka. And in the direction of Uledar, no territorial changes, but continuous attacks in this direction as well. Before I finish up this update, there's been some interesting news. According to Deep State Map, the area of Vasilivka now houses Wagnerian soldiers. If we look at the map we see here, PMC Wagner. And if we go back 2 days, then they weren't here. So in the past 2 days, Wagnerians have reached Vasilivka and are now in the Zaporizhzhia front. This is very interesting because previously we had seen pictures of buses moving Wagner soldiers, I think, in the Mariupol area here to the southeast, and then now they are in Vasilivka. So this also shows the fact that there are Chechen units as well as Russian forces, and at the same time we also have DPR. So in total there's a lot of forces here from a lot of different areas in the Zaporizhzhia front. I believe this is very interesting because usually in wartime they separate by army groups. So for example, the Wagner soldiers have the Bakhmut front, and then we have the Chechens somewhere else and the Russian forces somewhere else, and so on. But the Russian forces have decided to mix all units together. For example, here in the Zaporizhzhia front, where we have Chechens, Wagner soldiers, as well as DPR soldiers, while in the Bakhmut front, we have Wagner soldiers as well as LPR and Russian forces. So here we have some Russian forces. Here we have the 57th Motorized Rifle Brigade, PMC Wagner, Artillery Brigade of the LPR. So yet again, we have some Luhansk soldiers and not any Donetsk soldiers. But essentially, they're moving some militias with the Wagner soldiers as well as Russian forces. The only part where I see it being only Russian forces is here by Kreminna, where it's only Russian forces. There's a lot of Russian forces. There are 3 different divisions, tank division, motorized rifle brigades, all of these units, and they're all just Russian units. No LPR, DPR, Wagner, Chechens, anything. Just Russian forces in the Kreminna-Svetove front. And that is all for this update. Thank you for watching and have a great day.